Alright, so the dust has settled a little bit since the NASCAR 2024 championship race in Phoenix, Arizona last weekend, but there's a lot of controversy circulating around the NASCAR world at the moment. Now, of course, spoiler alert for you guys that haven't seen, but Joey Logano ended up winning the championship, and I had a funny feeling this would happen, to be honest with you, just with how the playoffs were kind of, panning out and all the controversy around Logano, and a lot of people are saying that the playoff system is broken, that it needs to change, and that this season really highlights that fact. Well, I'm going to give my take on it, go into the reasons why people are saying this, and whether they're legit, basically. Whether these reasons are legit reasons to change the playoff system, and whether we should get rid of the playoffs altogether or go back to something from the past. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a little bit. So, like I said, Joey Logano won the NASCAR Cup Series Championship this season, and he did so by winning the final race at Phoenix, Arizona. Now, there were some other victories that he had this season as well, some very key moments in the championship for him, and I've done an in-depth video going over those points, but one of the key points was the fact that after when we get into the round of 8, so the fifth to last race at the Charlotte Roval before we go into the round of 8, Logano was actually 9th overall in the playoff standings. And he only got into the playoffs, into the round of 8, because another driver, Alex Bowman, was disqualified from Charlotte because his car was underweight, I should say. And that basically meant that Logano, despite being 9th overall, was actually the 8th place driver. He ended up winning in Las Vegas the next week, booking his place into the final, and then in the final he won the race. But despite all the victories that he had, his overall performance throughout this season has been inconsistent at best. He actually would have, if there were no playoff system, if it was just purely on a points basis, just like the good old days before the days of the chase and the playoffs and everything, Logano actually would have finished all the way down in 14th overall in the standings, not even inside the top 12 or the top 8 for that matter. That is the lowest down finish of a NASCAR champion in terms of pure points in history. The average finish he had this season was something like 13th, 15th, something like that, which is well off the guys near the top. 871 points is what Logano picked up this season. The guy who picked up the most points this season, unsurprisingly, is Kyle Larson, and Larson was all the way up in 1,146 points. So he scored around a third, you're touching nearly 50% more points, which is just bonkers. I think it does work out to about 40% points more for Larson than it is for Logano. And how is this possible? Well, it's the playoff system. If you win in the regular season, in the first 35 races, whatever it is, then you get into the playoffs pretty much guaranteed, unless there's a lot of winners, unless there's more than 16 different winners throughout the regular season, which even in a season as crazy as what we just had, didn't happen. So it's unlikely to happen. So if you win one race, you're in. And that's what Logano did. He won one race in the regular season. Then he won a race in the round of 16. He just scraped through in the round of 12. We won another race in the round of 8, and then another race at the final championship clincher in Phoenix. So he won at very important times. And some people might argue that, well, that's how it goes. Logano just made the most of his opportunities when they came. He was fastest at the right time, and there is a certain art to that, but there is also the counter argument that Logano is not worthy of a champion this season. And I don't agree with that personally, just because I think at the end of the day, he performed better than the other drivers in the playoffs. He played the system and he made it work. And then you might say, well, does the system have to change? And that is the legit question. I do get it. I do get why they're doing it, but because of the overall excitement of it and everything in the system, where you've got 4 drivers being eliminated every 3 races. But for me personally, I grew up, when I first started watching NASCAR many, many moons ago, I grew up in the era of the chase. And I think the chase is very good. Now, there is an argument to say that you get rid of the playoffs entirely, don't have playoffs, don't have a chase, don't have anything like that. And I would say for most seasons that would be alright, because I think coming into this final round of Phoenix, had there been no playoff system just purely pacing off of points, I think the top 6 all would have been with a shot of winning the championship. Although Larson would have won it relatively comfortably, 25 points ahead of Chase Elliott. So I think there should be some kind of chase. I think there should be some kind of postseason in NASCAR. I don't think they should get rid of it. I understand from the pure racing point of view, because there's no other racing series that I know of that have anything like the playoff system Formula 1 doesn't have it, IndyCar doesn't have it, Formula E doesn't have it. F1 had like a double points weekend back in 2014 and it was very, very unpopular. So I think NASCAR should stay unique. I understand the viewpoint that you should get rid of the playoffs, not have a chase or anything, but I think we should bring back the days of the chase. You still have your 10 postseason races, but throughout that, it's all equal effectively. Those 12 drivers, or 16 drivers if you want to extend it to 16 like we have now at the moment, those are locked into the chase and they all battle it out. 10 races, equal opportunities. It's a bigger kind of sample set of, and therefore you're more likely to get a more worthy champion, for lack of a better term. And I think with that we would have seen somebody like Chris Bell, somebody like Kyle Larson win the championship this season, and that is what a lot of people are saying would have been more right than Logano. Not a viewpoint I totally agree with, but I do think the playoffs need to be looked at and they need to be discussed. But what do you guys think about this? Do you think that we should get rid of the playoffs? Do you think we should replace it with the chase? Try something new, or go back to the good old days where there was none of this nonsense, just a regular season throughout the entire year, best driver overall wins? I don't think that would be too great, because the amount of championships we'd have not going to the final race would be a lot. And you'd still get it with the chase every now and again, but I think it'd be very, very tough. You'd need a Jimmy Johnson type character to be so dominant throughout the season to make that happen. But we'll have to see. That's just my thoughts on it, guys. Let us know yours in the comments below, and of course for much more stock car content in the off season, do keep it tuned here to the NASCARchronicle.com. Like, share, comment, subscribe, ring the bell as well, and we'll see you very soon, guys. Have a good one.